We'll talk about that.
It's quite poor. Hello, welcome. My name is Ian. This is Jason. We're Sinners Review podcast. This is part 3 of podcast 7. So if you want to watch the other bits and see what you've missed, they're all linked down below. We're actually talking about famous bands from our hometowns. So I won't go over what we've already missed. So, but if stop watching this and go and watch that if you haven't done it already. There's other things to come along as well. There's cinnamon bun chat and recommendations and stuff like that, and Ask Ian, which is always a bit scary because I've got no idea what he's going to ask me.
I've had one this week.
Oh, really? Okay. So
Yeah.
so we're just finishing off with the famous bands and famous artists from our hometowns. Now, there's quite a few in York, but none of them are as famous as probably John Barry and Shed 7. But the next one, have you heard of Benjamin Francis Leftwich?
No.
He's
Enlighten me.
he's a folk artist. Okay. I know exactly how old he is because I met him when he was born. That just dates me, doesn't it? So Jane and I were involved in the National Childbirth Trust when our firstborn Matthew was born, and Ben's mum was part of that group. So I met Ben when he was literally 2 or 3, well, probably about 6 weeks old, really. I haven't met him since. I have seen him perform. He came and performed at Pocklington Festival a few years back. Again, he's folky and he's not my sort of thing. Really good songwriter though, and if he's and he's got a really really sweet voice. And if if that sounds like your sort of thing, apparently, according to York Mix, first album was 2011. And what he's done subsequently, when he goes on tour, he will usually take an act from York, from his hometown. So he's done that quite a few times, which is always a good thing.
Okay.
Apparently, he has struggled with alcohol and drug abuse, but he's been sober for over 5 years now. It's horrible to hear that happened to him, really. But yes.
Still knocking tunes out today?
Sorry, he's still knocking tunes out today, still performing. Yeah. The other one is a band that when they had one really good album. It's a band called Elliot Minor. Have you heard of them? So they were 2005. They were classically trained. They actually went to school on there's a place called Ampleforth College, which is on the outskirts, which is probably again 10 miles plus outside of York. And I think they all went there. So they were classically trained, but they played sort of pop rock stuff really. And the songs, that first album was really, really good. Big fan of that. In fact, they've got back together in the last couple of months, and they have been performing, I think, in London. I am actually Facebook friends with one of them. I've never met him. I've never met them, but they can write good songs. The White One and Parallel Worlds with the White One is Evil and Parallel Worlds with the two quite big hits. They certainly got in the top 20. Don't quite know how far up the charts they went really, but I was quite glad to see him back really, because if I get a chance I would go see him, because the quality of the songwriting was really really good.
Nice.
Who else have we got from York just to finish off? Have you heard of a band called Mostly Autumn? No. So folk rock Celtic. Again, I've seen this band play a few times. Folk rock band with a Celtic element. Brian Josh is the lead guy in that band, and I don't know him, but I have been in the same curry house on more than one occasion with him, you know. And I do know some of the members of the band. Their keyboard player, I think, was a guy called Andy Smith, who I do know. They were formed in '95, so they've been around, and they've done quite a lot of albums. They're sort of fiercely independent, I think, but they make a living as musicians and put music out, and they perform. They perform at some quite big stages over time, you know. So I think you find that they've got a bit of a cult following more than anything else, really. Not absolutely massive. The rest of the people on this list I've never heard of, so we won't even call it. And my other list, which was Google saying, yeah, mostly ordered. There's a band called Saint Christopher who I've never ever heard, but I almost became the keyboard player for at one point. I remember the guy. It's basically run by one guy. They're from early '80s, and they had a couple of hits in the early '80s. And every few years they'll pop up. And at one point he was putting a band together, and I never went to the audition. I can't remember why now. Maybe I was just busy doing other things. There's a couple of really good bands now. One of them is a band called The Howl and the Hum, who I have met with. I've been at Christmas parties with some of them. Don't know them well, and actually the actual original band, The Howl and the Hum, they were signed to a major, and I think there was 4 or 5 of them in the band. But Sam, the lead singer, he's got a brilliant voice, and he's sort of a solo artist now. So the band sort of fell apart, but Sam Griffiths has kept the name, and he's performing as The Howl and the Hum. So I think he's signed to an independent. Their music is really, really worth listening to. You know, but he's got. I've seen The Howl and the Hum as a band, but I've also seen Sam Griffiths play on more than one occasion, just as Sam Griffiths in a small pub in York. They're definitely worth looking at, and I hope big things for him, actually, or for him, because he's a good songwriter. He's got a great voice, and hopefully he's going places, really. There's nothing else on this list, although I would shout out to Bonneville, who is Bonnie Milne. She signed to a local independent record label in York. She has put her first album out, which I'll be honest with you, I don't really like very much, but I've seen Bonnie play with her. She's got a new band, actually. I think she's from York, but she's living in Leeds at the moment. She's put a new band together literally in the last month or so, 6 weeks. They're planning to do some gigs and some festivals this year. So hopefully, there'll be some new music from her. I just thought that the first album, there was better songs that weren't put on the album that should have been, really. And her sister, who sadly passed away, was a friend of Josh's, my youngest. But so the Bonneville, and the name comes from her dad. Dad's big into bikes, so that's how the name came about, Bonneville. But she's got a new band, and so there'll be new music coming out, and she's definitely worth looking out for.
Nice.
So that, I think that pretty much completes. The rest of the bands. There's a band called Blackbeard's Tea Party who are folk. Never seen them, but I know that one of them, literally as we were moving away from York, one of them moved into our street. I remember that, and we had a brief conversation, but that was just before. So that's the claim to fame there. I think they do a lot of festivals. Again, making a living as musicians. They've had a few albums out. Then they're quite traditional folk, but a good time folk band, you would say. But no, there's the rest of them. nobody's ever heard of, I would say.
You played the John Barry card. I'm impressed with that. I mean, you pulled
Yeah,
out the
yeah,
big gun right at the top
yeah.
there.
And of course, there was that amazing band called the Casing the Questions, which never did anything for 10 years. But anyway, that's a whole different story.
Check them out on Bandcamp.
Check them out on Bandcamp. The album will be revamped. Some of the songs will be revamped at some point in the future. So
It's the final one from me then.
yes,
I'll
go
go
on.
and I'll go quick with this last one. So I tried to do cross genres, right? So we did rock, we did new wave, we did reggae. I'm gonna go with this album from Birmingham. So it's The Streets. You can't quite
Oh
see it
yeah,
because it's
yeah,
cut
yeah.
off. So it's The Streets. So it's they're formed in the 90s. Their first album was called Original Pot. So they formed in the 90s, but they only really had their breakthrough in the early 2000s with this debut album, Original Pirate Material. Loads of great tunes on there that you still hear now. Has it come to this? We Become Heroes. You still hear them now, and they've been remixed and they pop up on adverts. This was a great album for me. One of those albums that really opened my mind to. Um, I guess it was a mix of rap and garage and dance and everything else, just a melting pot of dance culture and rap all in one.
Yeah, yeah.
The great album is still a good listen. I'm going to even give it. I'm going to even say I would give it as my recommendation for this week for people to go and listen to.
All
I
right.
think it still sounds very good. It's not too dated. It's over 20 years old, but actually it still stands up. There's some good tunes on there. He created his own subgenre out of what was going on. I think it was just that mix. Um, it's a very good album. He did an album after a couple of years later, which became even bigger, which was called "A Grand Don't Come for Free."
That's the
That
one
was
I
the one
know.
that had,
That's the one I know.
yes,
Yeah.
it had that fit, but you know it. It had that "Dry Your Eyes," the "Dry Your Eyes,"
Yes.
mate. It was
Yeah.
a bit of a ballad. The fit, but you know it is that doom 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 doom. It kind of had a 70s glam vibe to it
Yeah, yeah.
with him rapping over it. So that was a concept album. And actually, when you listen, I did buy the album at the time. I'm sure I have got it on CD. I know I have. And when you listen to it as an album, there's a story running all the way through about him. The album is called "A Grand Don't Come for Free," and it's about him losing £1,000. But because he's so drugged up, can't remember where he put it, and basically he hid it down the back of his TV. The whole album is just about that he's in this drug fueled haze.
I
So
do.
he's a bit Marmite,
Yeah,
Mike
he is.
Skinner. He's a bit.
Yeah. I do remember reading a really interesting, a few years ago now, interesting Guardian article with him, and him saying that he really struggled after how massive that first album became, and he wasn't prepared for it. And obviously he did get into substances or whatever, and he sort
Yeah.
of, that, but 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 it was really quite an interesting article. If I can find it, I'll link it down below because it was worth a read. And it certainly gave you some insight into what it was like for him to to deal with the fame side of it, because I suspect he didn't really like it.
Yeah, and he's a smart guy, really. He's got
Mm.
this bravado of, he's a bit kind of dresses football
Yeah, yeah,
hooligan-y. Um, it's all a bit oi, 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 oi. But actually, he's a smart, intelligent guy who knows what he's doing. I think he did he did he did a film. It was a bit like a music opera thing a couple of years ago. I saw he did a comeback on that. Never saw it. I've got to be honest. Um, but he's kind of, again, it was a kind of concept thing. They were at Glastonbury last year, I remember, or
right.
maybe the year before. It might have been a year or two ago. Pulled a big crowd for that. But yeah, that first album for me was
I've not heard
just
that,
really
so
good. It
I
was
need to.
definitely a defining album for me. The first
Right.
one, Original Pirate Material. So it's a bit garagey, a bit dancey,
Yeah.
but it's pretty good. And that was the platform for him then to do the singles, which were top 10 singles, right? The Fit,
Yeah.
but you know it and stuff. So really, really good. Finish off with The Streets, which
And
I'd
in
also
fact,
say is my recommendation.
I remember seeing him do a TV show and thinking, "Wow, this guy." Because up until that point, I hadn't really, he hadn't really registered with me, and I thought actually there's more to this guy than, and it was just him on his own with
Mm.
some technology, and he did the whole thing. He didn't. Obviously, he does have a band sometimes, but
Yep.
And I thought it was quite a brave thing to do, was to do that TV show like that. But also, you know, and he was just one of the singles, you know, I think it was the hit single at the time, you know. But no, good shout, matey.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll end with that. So I've disappeared. Look,
Look at
disappeared
that.
into
Amazing,
that
isn't
high
it?
rise.
Yeah.
How does that work? That's good.
Yeah.
Just got to lean back a little bit and coming in there. So what's cinnamon bun time?
Oh, cinnamon! I've had a cinnamon bun this week.
You have.
We've had
It's
one.
good because you had
We had a cinnamonless week last week.
cinnamon. Yes.
Yes. So yeah, Jane went into town on Saturday and came back with all sorts of goodies for me, bless her. Because you know, she bought me the latest copy of The Wire. I've stopped my subscription to The Wire, but I'd still buy The Wire magazine if it has a free CD, and it does, because this is the CD that came with it. And Jane purposefully went into Smith's. Oh, it's going to be called Jones's soon, isn't it? Because it's been taken over. Went into Smith's and bought The Wire for me, bless her, and went to M&S and bought me a cinnamon bun and a pretzel. But the cinnamon bun. So we've had cinnamon buns. We only had the one, so and it was lovely. It still gets 4 out of 5. Not quite 5 out of 5.
Good.
And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to London, so I'll be getting the Walthamstow cinnamon bun.
Yeah.
And I may even bring some back.
See if they want to sponsor this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have a word.
That'd be great. Actually, I'll be honest with you, they don't need to, because the amount of times I've gone in. It's a place called Chocolatine in Wood Street in Walthamstow. Shouldn't really say that, because anybody watching that who's in London will be heading towards Walthamstow now. There's lots of times I've gone into Chocolatine and to order my cinnamon bun, to find that they've run out, you know, and it would only be mid-morning. So, and I've had to have a cardamom bun, which I have to say, a cardamom bun is not a cinnamon bun. Anyway, that's enough of that. So yes, cinnamon chat over.
So, about asking and anything then.
Yeah, go on then.
I've got 2 good ones. I'll probably save. I'll save one of them. So let's do this one then. So we'll have to go quite quick, but
Sure.
It's an old question, but I'm interested to know yours. So, dinner guests, 3 other people, famous people, either dead or alive. So you're having dinner, you and 3 other people. Who would they be?
Me and 3 other people, right? Okay. Oh gosh.
John Barry now, right?
No, not John Barry. No. Who would I want to be? There's lots of times I've said to Jane, that's somebody I'd have round for dinner. And now you put me on the spot. Peter Ustinov. I've read Peter Ustinov's books, and he just sounds like a really good fun, with lots of stories. I would have to pick some people that have got lots of stories.
Yeah.
And I would like to have David Bowie, because I want to meet him. I don't need him to tell me stories. I just want to meet him and have a nice meal with him.
He'd have some stories, though, wouldn't he?
He would have
some stories.
Yeah, exactly. And the third person. So I should have, because those are both dead. I suppose I should pick somebody alive, really.
Jarvis Cocker.
No, not really. Because I do believe sometimes people that you really admire, and I do admire Jarvis, that you shouldn't necessarily meet them.
After the illusion.
And I have met some famous people and then been completely disappointed by meeting them and thought they were arses. Although I'm not for 1 minute am I saying that Jarvis is an arse. I don't think he is. I don't want to smash the illusion. Who else would it be? But I'll have to try and pick somebody
that's alive then.
I'll pick somebody that's alive, who I am interested in. Damien Hirst.
Very good. He's the formaldehyde guy, right?
He is, yeah, and because I'd like to ask him some questions about his artwork. I'm not a massive. I mean, I'm a fan of some of his art, not all of it. and back in the day he was a bit of a wild man. So whether it be smashing the crockery, I don't know, and turning it into a piece of art. But yeah, no. So that's my three, and it's a great question. I like the question.
That's a good dinner, though. There would be some stories there.
I mean, Peter Ustinov would be entertaining everybody, you know. So yeah, and
Get a guitar out for Bowie.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, that would be it.
Nice.
So recommendations. Have you got any more apart from?
I haven't got anything new. I'm going to go back and listen to that Streets album when I get back on Friday. I'm going to dig out the CD and I'm going to play end to end. What I am trying to do now, obviously, because it wouldn't be an episode of us talking if we didn't mention Grottify. But what I am trying to do is when I listen to albums, I'm trying to listen to a whole album. Again, when I'm back home, put a vinyl on. I'll pick a vinyl at random. I know you used to do your random record of the day.
I haven't done one for a while, actually, but yeah, and I quite like doing that. I do quite like sort of just picking a record and then listening to it, and
just making a point of listening to it from front to back as it's intended. Artists think an awful lot about running order and the theme and the vibes and the message in the whole album, and then we just put it on a random playlist and get track 6 pops up. It's not the way to do it. So nothing new, I would say, has popped up and caught my eye. I've got to be honest. There's nothing really tickled my fancy.
Sorry, go on. I was just
going to say, new releases tend to slow down a bit when it's mid-festival season, don't they?
Yeah.
Festivals all around the world, so the releases are usually before that for people to promote or after. So it's been a little bit quiet in terms of new stuff, which is where I usually go.
Yeah, I'm going to go on.
You got some
3 documentaries. The first one is a really tough watch, and it's on Channel 4, and it's the Gaza doctors under attack, which Jane didn't want to see it, and I quite understand. But actually, I think it's really important.
This is the one the BBC have been having hanging around for ages, and and
the BBC have been criticised, and rightly so, because it's a really tough watch. I couldn't watch it. The interesting thing, and good on Channel 4, there was no adverts before it. There was no adverts in the middle of it, because that's unusual, and there was no adverts at the end of it. I couldn't watch it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was absolutely in tears. I couldn't watch it all in one sitting. But I think it's really important that we all watch it, because people need to know exactly what is happening to the Palestinians in Gaza, and how they and what the Israelis are doing. I know that they've tried as much as possible to actually verify what they've done in the documentary, and that was the BBC's argument about they couldn't verify literally everything, and where they haven't been able to verify everything, they've said, so you can take some of that with a pinch of salt, but they've interviewed people that have been arrested and taken to Israel. Now apparently that's a war crime in its own, just by taking somebody out of Gaza and then moving them to Israel and putting them in a prison. And how they are treated is horrendous. The whole thing is horrendous. But I actually think it's really important that we watch it, But it's not an easy watch, and
and there's Netanyahu with Trump for the 3rd time in his presidency. He's there for the 3rd time this year, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Did you see that?
Bollocks, isn't it? Really.
Anyway, we shouldn't do politics, but I'm with you though. I'm sure it's very, very sobering.
Yeah, it is, and I understood more. I mean, I don't know a huge amount about the situation. We are to blame for that situation in 1940s or whatever. And I have seen there's a film called I think it's Sophia's Tree, which I saw, which I understood a little bit more. But I can't say that I'm, by any stretch of the imagination, I'm an expert on either of it. And the Hamas atrocity was horrendous, but so is what Israel have been doing to Palestinians. So
they're just choking everything off.
Yeah.
Water, hospitals, just basic care.
And it is really about what they're doing to doctors and hospitals in, the fact that they are bombing hospitals.
Wiping out generations of people. Anyway, let's not get this. Yeah. So it's a fucked up world.
It is. The other two, one is here's the story. So I had tickets to go and see this documentary while we lived in Pocklington. And then halfway through the film, we lived around the corner from the Pocklington Arts Centre. I suddenly said to Jane, "Oh God, we've got tickets to see that documentary. It's Pete Doherty, Stranger in My Skin." So this is on Sky TV or Now TV, and because I've had Now TV for a month, I didn't even know it was there until yesterday. So I watched that. It's really quite an interesting documentary. Apparently, he's been clean for the last 3 or 4 years, but it's about and it's filmed by his now wife. But obviously, it's been filmed over a 10, 15 year. It covers all the early stuff with libertines and all that, and becoming famous and him getting his heroin addict. And it is really about him getting clean, and him trying to get clean, and him, the stuff about him going to prison and all of that. And I mean, he lives in a complete shithole. He lives in a heroin addict drug den for a lot of this time, But it's a really, really fascinating documentary. And we saw the second half of it. We missed literally the first 40 minutes when we turned up to see it at the cinema. But and I'm glad I finally got round to see it. And
I've seen the Louis Theroux one with him. Have you seen that? Have you seen the one that Louis Theroux does with him?
No.
So it's probably worth you watching that now, because that's more up to date.
Yeah.
It's probably from a year or so ago. So he's in a house in France.
Yeah.
He's got a kid. They've got dogs.
Yeah. So I think
it's probably worth watching that to complement it.
Yes, I will do. Yeah. The other one, and this, somebody recommended this. I can't remember who it was, ages ago, and I just suddenly stumbled across looking for things. And this was Boyzone, No Matter What. Right now, let's face it, Boyzone are not our thing. But from a music business point of view, and the inside of what it's like to be in an incredibly famous boy band, and it's 3 parts, so it's a 3-part. So each one's an hour.
Is it Louis Walsh? Was Louis Walsh behind them?
Yeah, and actually, he does not come out of it very well.
Yeah, he got some skeletons in the cupboard. Yeah. I'm sure.
There's a bit. I'm quite happy to share this bit. There's a bit, obviously, after Stephen Gately had died, and I mean, I hadn't really looked into it. I, up until watching this, thought that Stephen Gately had died of drugs and alcohol. He wasn't. He was a genetic thing, really. That's what killed him. His lungs filled up with fluid overnight. He didn't know he had it, and it killed him. It's just one of those things, really. But the media at the time, it was all about drugs and alcohol, and everybody says Stephen Gately was not that guy. He was not a hedonistic guy. Other members of the band might have been, but he wasn't him. And they show the star. No, it's the Sun headline of the day that he died. Right. Ronan Keating's in tears. The rest of the band are in tears. Louis Walsh goes, "Oh, what a nice picture!" And it's just like you just see what he's really like as a human being, and scumbag is the word that comes to mind, really. So it's worth watching for his input, because he's manipulated these lads to such an extent, But it's a really fascinating documentary about the music business. And definitely worth a watch, really, if you've got access to Now TV or Sky.
Well, who knew we'd start with John Barry and end with Boyzone? How did that happen?
Yeah. And the thing's just come up to say we're running out of time. So that's a perfect. Who knew? Exactly. From John Barry to Boyzone. So. Okay. So. Yes, so that's us done for this week. So more next week. We'll come up with a topic, and enjoy the rest of your week, matey.
Yes, and you. I hope it's not too warm the next couple of days.
Apparently, it's going to be.
You got your sun hat on.
I have got my sun hat on because I've got flat hair. I thought I'd put my sun hat on because It's roasting here today. And actually,
Yes,
in here at the moment, it is probably about, I don't know, 100 degrees. So it feels like that anyway.
Yeah, get that door open.
Yeah, well, and the window. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, have a good
All
weekend.
right.
We'll catch up next week, and I'll
Yes, mate.
take it easy.
Take care.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.